So yeah, open standards, relevance to open source and vice versa, and some questions at the end. So next slide. So standards, my definition of a standard is really a kind of code of practice for how things and people should behave together to gain entry into and status and trust within a community of practice. Now that's a general definition. For systems, of course, that means we're talking about systems behavior, and that means messaging, and it means web services, and it means all of those things which the system uses to access the external world. We need to control those by standards. So there are closed and open standards. Closed standards really are commercial copyrighted standards used by companies really to control and dominate products in the marketplace. And they definitely work. You've only got to look at the likes of Microsoft and Apple to realize that. There are also open standards. Now these are either in the public domain or copyright can be easily obtained from a copyright holder, which allow you unconstrained or virtually unconstrained commercial use and development. Next slide, please. Now, in the healthcare world, we have quite a number of standards that we can borrow from the commercial world. And more recently, we've been borrowing heavily from the Oasis standards camp. But of course, we also have our own standards in the shape of HL7 version 3, HL7 version 2, DICOM, the imaging standard, and more recently, OpenEHR has come up with artifacts which are conceivably a new type of standard. Now the problem is there are so many of these. Oasis in particular has standards covering all aspects of IT infrastructure, from identity management, authentication, user provisioning, through to data sharing, document access control, registries. The whole gamut of IT infrastructure is available there in the form of standards. Problem is there are so many to choose from in healthcare. The question is which ones apply and in what context? And you can't expect every IT director in every trust to be a Leonardo da Vinci and working out how to apply these standards for every particular system or function in the trust. So IHE has taken on that role for a bunch, about 300 international IT vendors, and we do that through things called profiles, which is explained on the slide, please. So profiles, what are they? Well, they're a bit like, using the music analogy, if a standard is equivalent to a single instrument, and a bunch of instruments can clearly be used to create some music, then what's missing really in the standards world are the music sheets, or we call them profiles. Now, the profiles tell systems and IT developers which parts of the standard to use and what codes to use in particular data fields in what healthcare context. And that cuts across all of the available standards. So it's about profiles really tell us how to orchestrate the standards to get them to do something useful, or to get the systems to do something useful with them. And IHE as a whole organization to compose profiles, to get vendors to rehearse together in things which we call connectathons. They're actually quite formal testing events where different systems can connect to each other and do peer-to-peer testing and group testing, and earn a star or a badge at the end of the day to say that they've actually passed a series of conformance tests. And armed with those badges, they can then take their products to market and claim compliance with IHE. So that's our way of delivering plug and play in healthcare. Okay. Okay. So we cover basically every aspect of healthcare. So clinical and PHR content, security and privacy, patient identification management, workflow in healthcare, data exchange, documents exchange. If you can think of a problem in healthcare that's kind of a common problem that's solved in more than one place, chances are we've got a profile for it in IHE, and which calls up a range of open standards which allow systems to be compliant in the normal way. XDS is our most popular standard at the moment. It stands for Cross-Enterprise Document Sharing. It calls up HL7 CDA and uses PDF and scanned documents as well. But basically, it provides a kind of a search engine registry for people to register documents and to search for particular documents as well. And all the documents are identified with the patient identity for clinical safety. Okay. Slide. So we've just finished the PISA Connectathon. It was a great event. This was a couple of weeks ago. The Connectathons are held in Europe once a year. Last year it was Bordeaux. A year before that it was Vienna. This year it was Pisa. They're week-long testing events. Companies come because it's cheaper than training. It provides them with a great way to system test their software. And the byproduct is, of course, interoperability with other vendors, which increasingly is, as I said earlier, looked upon as a kind of corporate social responsibility for IT vendors. So we at the Connectathon, it was also we had a group of companies who were involved in the EPSOS project, which was testing cross-border patient document exchange using XDS. And it was an absolutely superb networking event for geeks, technical people, as well as the odd consultant like myself.
Hi Malcolm, sorry, it's actually just turned 3:05. If it's possible to wrap up, unfortunately, as we have almost run out of time.
Yeah, sure, I'm almost there. So relevance to open source, I think that's really why I started this presentation. Basically, open source software platforms provide a rapid way to implement open standards. So you'll find that in many of the open source software platforms out there, they will be, particularly the ones focused on medicine, they will be implementing varieties of HL7, DICOM, Oasis, SNOMED, even the drug dictionary, I think, is available in some kind of open source platform. But the key thing about open source is that it's an open source platform itself can, of course, if widely used, become a de facto standard, and that's really how where we get Linux and Apache HTTP web server from. They're de facto standards which have emerged from open source implementations, not standards which have been converted into open source platforms. So, and open source software itself, of course, can be a vehicle for new open standards like the Open Document format, which comes out of the Open Office stable. So if I could move on to the next slide. Yeah, so finishing off by saying, open standards and open source, they're clearly tightly integrated subjects, although they are very different subjects. In the open source software world, we still need open standards to communicate with the proprietary world, to establish interoperability with proprietary software platforms. But we can provide another service to the open standards world in that we can provide rapid implementations of open standards in open source as one, a means of testing whether an open standard really is open, and two, rather, to get the standard out there as widely distributed as possible without having to wait for the proprietary vendors to implement, which can take years, of course. So, but there are three questions I think we have to answer. Which standards are important to us in UK healthcare? Still don't think that we've actually compiled a full list here, so that's some work that we need to do, I think, before we have the corollary to this meeting. What profiles are important? We have two profiling sources at the moment. One is the National Programme for IT and the National Integration Centre profiles for Choose and Book and GP-SOC. The other is IHE. What accreditation frameworks are important? Again, along with the profiles, the NIC provides an accreditation framework for spine-connected applications, and the IHE connectathons provide accreditation for IHE profiles. So, again, I think if we answer those three questions, I think we'll be well on the way to producing a fully connected NHS. Thanks a lot.
Much for all your contributions and for attending today, especially to Tim, Natalie and Malcolm for their time. The recording will be put online soon and we'll send out a link to that. And before you leave, if you'd like to answer any feedback questions we put on the screen here about how you found the webinar. So if you have any comments, please feel free to add them to the box. They'll be open for the next 10 minutes still. Or you can email us at info@eHealthOpenSource.org and visit the website as well to get more information about our future webinar sessions. And there's also supporting documentation to download there. It's a PDF file and also two web links for your perusal. So I'd just like to say thank you again for your time. Hope you found this session useful and take care. Bye-bye.
And before everyone leaves, one thing I want to mention is currently we are organizing open source awards. So if you have any developed business case or good practice of using open source projects, please visit our website and find more details about the competition. Thanks.